He never did flee, and today he died at the hands of his own people, aided by a 7-month bombing campaign led by Britain and France and the United States.
The dark shadow of tyranny has been lifted, and with this enormous promise, the Libyan people now have a great responsibility.
Just 27 when he first came to power in Libya, Gaddafi was a dashing figure who quickly created a cult of personality. Dressed in flashy outfits that bordered on costume, he surrounded himself with a phalanx of heavily armed women known as the Amazonian Guard. He welcomed visiting dignitaries in a tent that he pitched wherever he went. Perhaps his most infamous moment was the bombing of Pan Am 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, which killed 270 people, most of them Americans. At home in Libya, he created an insular world that he ruled with an iron fist. As you drove through the streets of Tripoli, the capital, his image was everywhere, and he loomed large within even his own family. A father to 8 children by 2 wives, his offspring were just as outlandish as their father. One son flew in Beyoncé for a New Year's Eve party. Another kept a pet lion at the Tripoli Zoo. And Gaddafi's glamorous daughter Aisha, with her dyed blonde hair, was known as the Claudia Schiffer of North Africa. So what was it like to live in Gaddafi's world? Tonight, we bring you an exclusive look from a very unlikely source.
No, for me it was all opportunity.
Meet Jacqueline Frazier, a young American woman who became a member of the inner circle, and from there, watched the regime slowly unravel. What is a blonde American girl from Vermont doing in the heart of darkness? How did you end up in Libya?
A mutual friend in Los Angeles who introduced me to Saadi Gaddafi.
Saadi Gaddafi was long considered a playboy, even among his high-living family. He had left Libya for Europe, where he had a brief and unspectacular career as a professional soccer player. But by last year, he had returned to Libya with the intention of helping to create new business in the country. In the end, it was the Gaddafis who were silenced. The dictator dead, a fate Jacqueline had predicted. Are you surprised that they didn't give up, that they didn't leave?
Not at all. I don't think there's only 2 ways for them to end up, and that's dead or in jail.
A bloody legacy that today came to a bloody end. For Nightline, this is Christiana Manpour.
My beloved brothers and sisters, I again begin with the greeting words of the righteous. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Yes, alhamdulillah, it has been a great honor and a long journey that we have been taking, journeying toward al-akhirah, journeying toward the hereafter. And no doubt, this is a journey which will be taken by every human being. There is no king, there is no queen, there is no president, there is nobody on the face of the earth who will not take this journey. But it is important for believers, for those who have been entrusted with the message of the last Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that we should have basira, that we should have sight into the affairs going on around us. Also that we should be able to look into our past and analyze what we are doing today, and at the same time be able to look into the future in order to make our plans and to better straighten out the affairs that we are involved in right now. And so in order to give the believers a straight path and an overall look at things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed with details the journey to the hereafter.
Bam. Preaching the words of Assalamu alaikum, which means peace and blessings be upon you. I mentioned both Jesus and Muhammad's names, peace be upon them both. They were both messengers of truth. In reality, you're looking at the Underground Railroad TV show. Me and Alderman Jones come on every Saturday night at 10:30. But all of these gentlemen on the stage, you can catch us on YouTube 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So we go to my co-host and we introduce ourselves. Yes, sir.
I'm happy to be here tonight. I'm Alderman Virgil Jones. I'm also the Deputy Consul General for the Moore Science Temple, post number 1. And I'm here to make sure that we impute knowledge to people. Because one of the things that most people don't do nowadays is read.
Yes.
If you don't read, you'll be just like the people of old. You won't know anything. So I encourage people to read.
Okay, Dr. Lee Warren, thank you for accepting the invitation to come on. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Cliff, at the Underground Railroad, for allowing me to appear on the show this evening. My name is Dr. Lee Warren. I'm the founder and CEO of PLEM. That's the Power Latent Man. We've been on TV for some 20 years. We come on every Wednesday from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. on Channel 36. It's reshown Thursday morning from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And you can contact us at 773-509-8124. Again, that's 773-509-8124. Also want to extend a special invitation to you. Those of you that hear the live show today, you can come out and visit us tomorrow evening from 5 to 7:30. It's called a financial preparedness. It's free. It's going to tell you all about what you need to do to prepare yourself for the great meltdown in America and the reset for the whole world. So we hope to see you tomorrow. And again, I want to thank Clifford for allowing us to come in.
This is a tape show, but you know what, in the future, yeah, this is a tape show right here. But in the future, they can't come out to the conference.
Right,
though.
they can.
Okay, you know what, I want to change things because, you know, we don't talk about the Middle East and the leaders that are being, we're going to talk about Gaddafi in the last 2 segments. We're going to do 2 more segments.
Okay.
But I want to ask you specific about Gaddafi. Who is Gaddafi? Who was he? Why was he such a threat? And why was he such a problem to the United States of America?
Who are you asking?
You.
Well, first of all, we have to realize that for him to even entertain or be put in that position, remember, as the end is declared from the beginning, he was actually a CIA agent. And they chose him as they did Noriega. Listen, let me say it this way. The people in the third world, especially in the last 50 years, you don't come to power not unless you are backed by the United States and the various groups of power. By that I mean they allow these people, it's like Saddam, it's CIA agent, he's put in there to oversee the country, to make sure everything went, normal, to support the American economic system. Well, he was allowed to, remember, he was somebody that was illiterate. And they just put him into power, and he got into power. And they thought that they would control him like they did Hitler. And what happened was he started actually doing things for the people and beginning to recognize that there was powers far beyond him that intended to undermine his country and continue to have it exist as a colonial colony. And there was a great rebellion against that. So what he did basically was, we have to realize that country was, the chief resource was oil, and they also had gold. And matter of fact, if you want to look at it, they had the best oil in the world. You talk about Saudi Arabia or anybody in any other country in the world, nobody had the quality of sweet crude oil. In other words, that oil was so sweet, so pure, that you just stick a pipe in the ground and pull it out and put it in a diesel and it'll run.
Wow.
So it was very low refining capacity for it. You didn't need that huge refinery like we have out at South Chicago. You wouldn't need that for it. So you had the best quality oil.
Yes, sir.
And then he had 140 tons of gold. And what he began to do with his resources was reinvest those in infrastructure, rebuilding the country. He had a big desert project where he was going to re-water the desert and make water available, because there's a huge aquifer of water underneath the Sahara Desert. And he was going to grow food and bring water to that region. And this would sort of undermine the powers to be. One of the things he did.
Yes.
And the first thing he did was that he wanted a unified Africa,
Yes.
and setting up a currency that differs from the dollar. And I've been telling you for years that the dollar was through, and you better have some silver. And what he wanted to do was use gold dinar. In other words, use money that was backed by
Yes.
gold. And what that would do, that would undermine the Federal Reserve System. In other words, the dollar is a reserve currency of the world. What that means by a reserve currency means all currencies in the world are backed by dollars.
Yes.
That's what it means. And in order to buy gold, in order to buy oil anywhere in the world, you had to exchange your currency for dollars. So if you had, say you're Japanese, you had yen, you would trade yen for dollars, and then you'd go and buy oil from Saudi Arabia. You couldn't buy it all. This was set up by in 1970 with what's this guy's name? I can't think of his name right now. Anyway, Kissinger set this up. Anyway, to make a long story short, is in this project. See, everybody wanted sovereignty.
Yes.
To be able to govern themselves, and how should I say, and make their country independent and prosper for the average people. What happened was, this was undermining the power of the dollar. So what he would do then, he set this dollar situation up. This dinar would be in competition with the dollar. This is the same thing that happened with Saddam.
Yes, sir.
The reason Saddam was overthrown was not that he killed the people, with that gas. They gave him the gas. That Bush and them gave that didn't mean nothing. They didn't kill him. The problem was when Saddam started issuing the fact that in order to buy oil,
Yes.
you could buy it in euros. And when he did that was the last straw that he had to be overthrown, because nobody in the world could undermine the hegemony or the dominance of the dollar.
Yes, sir.
So it had to be the supreme currency in the world. And anytime you bring gold and silver into the mix, people, if you gave somebody some a $20 gold piece or
Yes, sir.
or a coup grant, if you told them, said, listen, do you want this paper money or do you want gold? Anybody with the right mind would take gold and silver over paper money, and especially those
Yes, sir.
nations that are trading that have assets, oil, gold, stuff like aluminum, uranium. They would want those things in exchange instead of a dollar. So the American or the powers to be in this country realized that the dollar was getting ready to be undermined.
Yes, sir.
And see, Gaddafi didn't have the power or the backing that he needed to confront the U.S. hegemony and the Anglo-Saxon, England and Wall Street. And see, the only way that he could do it if he had the backing of Russia or China, mainly Russia. And that's the reason today why they have not overcome Assad in Syria.
Syria, yeah.
That would have been a walk, but Russia backed him with heavy weapons and told him, said, listen, we're ready to go to war for this.
Yes, sir.
So they had to pull back. So then Gaddafi never had the backing of the Russians. So then the NATO powers went in on a pretext that he was a dictator and and they bombed him, and the rebels were able to overthrow him.
Yes, sir.
That's the gist of it. He gave up his weapons of mass destruction, his gas, his everything, to try to be obedient to his masters. But he didn't know that he was dancing with the devil. See, when you dance with scorpions, you definitely gonna get bit by them. That's what happened with him,
Yes,
and
sir.
any other body. So unless he had the backing of Russia, the best thing he could have done is when they told him to leave the country, just pack up and leave and take his gold and stuff and go somewhere else and try to live
Yes,
the rest
sir.
of his life out. But he stayed there and tried to fight, and that was a losing battle there because he did not have the backing.
That's why his own people turned against him. But
they were paid.
Go ahead, Alderman. He got a question. Go ahead, Alderman.
Oh, I got a question. When he was the head of Libya, and Libya goes back in time to Hannibal the Great, because
right.
it was known as Carthage back then,
That's right.
and not Libya. And it's always been a major power when it came to Africa, all right? When Hannibal was there, they were conquering European world.
For a time until before the Romans defeated them. They defeated the Romans. Romans came back. They won a battle. The Romans came back and just decimated them.
20 years later.
Yeah, but they still won the war.
They won the war 20 years later.
Right.
But one of the things Gaddafi did, everybody in Libya or Carthage, they all got free education.
That's true.
They didn't have to pay to go to school.
That's right.
Even when they went to college, they didn't have to pay for that. They could go to be anything, a scientist, chemist,
That's right.
doctor, lawyer,
That's
anything.
exactly right.
And when he left, that ceased to exist.
Oh yeah.
And that's why they're having all the problems now in Libya. Because the people lost all the stuff that they had, and they realized that they were tricked.
Oh
all right?
Exactly.
Seeing, you mentioned the United States. I want to ask a question. Is it really the United States, or is it the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank?
Well, they're all three, because you remember the United States was the United States was the one that created those organizations, the IMF, the World Bank, and et cetera. So those things, they were created. They created those world banks to actually become to control the third world after the war. They knew that these people had the resources, and they knew that in order to get financing at the IMF, World Bank, these would be instruments whereby they could, because listen, if I'm a banker and I'm loaning you money, you're in debt to me. So they used that form of debt to control those nations. They didn't have the technology and they didn't have the money. So listen, we'll give you technology and give you the money. But really what they were doing was put them in debt. So in actuality, what they were doing was collateralizing whatever assets that they have in the ground. If they couldn't pay the loan, they said, wait a minute, you can't pay the loan. That's ours now.
You know, as we talk about the Middle East, you know, there seems to be so much turmoil. I mean, there was Saddam Hussein. Okay, there was bin Laden. And the president of Syria right now. What is it? Why is taking over the diaspora? Why is this so vital to the outside interests and outside forces?
Well,
when people are fighting and want a united Africa within the very diaspora, why?
Well, you got to understand that the Middle East plays a very important role. And this is a paper called. This was put out. This paper was name of it is Quiet. Solid Weapons, Quiet Wars. This paper was in Cooper's book, The Beholder Pay a Horse. And what it says right here, I'm just going to read one sentence. It says, energy is recognized as the key to all activity on the earth.
Okay.
Energy, so oil is the key. Anything that's uranium, oil, all these natural resources are controlled. In other words, if you want to be an industrialized society, you got to have oil. You got to have certain other elements or resources that you need to build any society, especially modern society. And what they have decided to do is control all those assets using finance, put their puppets in, and et cetera. So what happened was, remember, the Middle East has what about 60 or 70% of the known world resources, and Saudi Arabia has a treaty with us, is that we're supposed to be their protector. So, and the United States knows that that area, who controls the oil to that area controls the world. Because see, China is energy poor. Russia has a great deal of resources, but China don't have no resources in terms, especially oil. So they have to, as long as they can control the energy, they can control China.
Yes, sir.
So that's the reason why, and constantly what they do, let me say this, Saddam, Iraq had the most of all the so-called Islamic nations. He had the most advanced nation in Islam.
Yes, sir.
No other nation, take Saudi Arabia, all them other places in Sudan, nobody had the advanced technology and the way he had built that country up, none of them. And they knew that they would have to overthrow him, and that's what they did. When they went in and overthrew Saddam, was besides the dollar thing, they wanted to make an example of destroying that, the same thing they did. So the Middle East was the heartbeat of the world, and they definitely wanted the control of that, and they still want control of it. So they're constantly fomenting revolutions in those countries. Yeah. Constantly keeping it in turmoil. Yeah, so as long as, just like the South Side, that ain't no accident, and Inglewood is crazy, and every day you have 10 to 15 shootings of teenagers. It's designed to keep you in totally fear and confusion, and once you're in confusion and turmoil, you can't think your way out of a paper bag.
Well, it was like in China, they used to have the Opium Wars.
Right, but which by England.
And they have done that here in our community.
Exactly.
They have set up the Opium Wars here as drugs.
Right, so.
And that's only so that they can do one thing, keep the people crazy on dope.
That's it.
So that they can't think about doing things successfully for themselves.
That's it.
And they really don't own any of it.
Right.
All right? They're just controlled by it.
That's it.
understand, you know. And you know what the bottom line is, what he wanted was a united Africa. Is this wrong in your opinion?
Well, they couldn't allow that.
It couldn't allow that.
I'm talking about, do you think it's wrong?
Well, no, you got, listen, no, it's not long because you have the United States. It's United States. What that means, each one of those states, 48 states, they are a republic unto themselves.
Yes, sir.
They are a republic, and what they did, they allocated certain rights to the central government, which is a U.S. government, or Washington, D.C. But under the Articles of Confederation, they were separate republics, which they got it. They really got that from the Indians that lived here.
The Iroquois.
The Iroquois. But you have separate entities. So a united Africa would have been difficult, but they could probably do it through economics. But it could be done on an economic level, whereby, but they didn't want, listen, why do you think South America is in such a chaos, or Mexico is in such a chaos? Because the United States over the years did not want any competition. And Rockefeller said competition is sin. So they want a monopoly so that they could never be undermined, and they had total control over all things.
The only thing that saved China was when Mao Zedong said, hold it, close the borders. We're not letting nobody come in here, period. We're going to run this ourselves.
Excuse me, we got 2 minutes left now. You know what, I had to give Dr. Lee Warren the opportunity. It may have been something that you wanted to express that you didn't get the opportunity to express.
Well, it's very important for you to understand correctly what's happening. There's a power shift taking place, and especially in the East. See, all the power, all the money now is in the East. And the Western nations, what we call the so-called white nations, they are totally bankrupt. We're talking about all of Europe, England, and the U.S. That's it. They bankrupt, totally bankrupt at this time. And the money is in China and Russia with the resources. And those nations are coming together to form an economic pact, which would be like NATO.
Yes, sir.
And they want to start a separate trading bloc, such that they can, such that they can become independent of the West, because they realized that the West was not going to give them what they want in terms of the idea of building their country. So what you need to do is simply this: you better get all the silver you can and pray for guidance and instructions, because the power is going to these.
Dr. Warren, when does your show come on? Assalamu alaikum to everybody. When does your show come on?
Every Wednesday from 8:30 to 9:30 on Channel 36. And every Thursday from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. Okay. So it's important that you get knowledge while you can. And remember, Yahshua cast out the money changers. That's what caused him to get killed. Yeah. That's the same way it happened today. Anybody that's talking about gold and silver, unless they backed by Russia and China, they in trouble.
Yeah. What's your YouTube channel?
It's called, we have two. It's called PLIM, PLIM number 2.org. Mm-hmm. ORG, and then it's www.plim.org.
It is a necessary step that we all
sad what happened to Gaddafi.
After the soul leaves
Assalamu
the body,
alaikum, thank you.
There would be certain trials in the barzakh, or in the zone of existence, in between the hayat ad-dunya and the final life. And between the time that one dies and the day of resurrection, there are certain signs that would point toward the coming of the hour, and other signs would certify the fact that the hour is upon us. And so we have studied the minor signs and some of the major signs. In the major signs, we understood that the Muslims would go through a great crisis, but that ultimately speaking, after a world war, al-Malhama al-Kubra, and we see the world now, the forces of the world, lining up in the Middle East for this major confrontation to take place. After this war, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would manifest the power of Islam, because Allah would raise up the Mahdi, the guided one, the promised one, who would lead the forces of Islam to victory. But when the Muslims have celebrated or are celebrating the victories, during that time it would be known to them that a great fitna, a great trial has come about, and that is the coming of Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, the Antichrist. And this trial is the greatest trial that has ever existed. All of the prophets spoke about a Dajjal. Ultimately speaking, alhamdulillah, Dajjal would be killed and defeated by Isa alayhi salam himself. And we left the Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, with his followers after having defeated Dajjal and the 70,000 of the Yahud.